Computer. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron. I'm speaking from Canada, and I'm very excited to have a show today where I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics. I wrote a book on it, on portals. I'm bringing in Jessica Jones from the state of Georgia, and her weather would be much nicer and sunnier and warmer than it is here. But welcome, Jessica, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Grant. I am so excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you and hear your stories of all the stuff you've done. You're one of the sort of the new people on the block, and you've done a lot of shows. I heard you on Dave Scott, and when I heard you were talking about portals, and I said, "Wow, I gotta talk to this girl." So, give us a little bit of background about who you are and how you got into this crazy world of UFOs and stuff like that.
Well, I've been attuned to the paranormal my entire life.
Yeah.
About 12 years ago, I met a group of guys who were Bigfoot field researchers, and were very serious about what they did. And they invited me out to do an expedition with them one weekend, and of course I went. I'd never been camping by myself before, and I was with a bunch of strange men, but it
Yeah.
was the best thing I ever did. It was so much fun. And um and it and it wasn't just Bigfoot that we encountered out there that weekend. I had UFOs flying over my head
Wow.
most of the weekend. And we had ET activity and a lot of other stuff that we weren't really sure what was going on out there. And so the head of my team is a remote viewer, and he decided that he needed to teach. I became a member of their team after that. Okay, after that weekend, and he decided to teach all of us remote viewing. And so now I'm a remote viewer and a Bigfoot field researcher. We have several different places that we research all over the South. One of them is referred to as the South Skinwalker Ranch, actually.
Wow.
And the head of my team has written a book about our research called the Meadow Project. We called that place the Meadow. I was
Okay.
just there last weekend,
Wow.
and we did encounter what we consider to be a portal out there a few years ago, and sent two teammates inside of it and back out.
So tell me the whole story of how this portal thing appeared and what did they see and did you film it? You had tell me all the equipment that you had when this.
Yes. Okay. So for that weekend, we had a research weekend out at the Meadow. I was actually not there the night that that happened. I had just gone home because I had a small child at home. And by the way, I had orbs flying around my house that night that I have on film, flying around my son. But while I had gone home that evening, my team, we had been having a whole lot of interesting activity out there. We have everything from UFOs to Sasquatch to possible MIBs to, ghosts, trickster spirits. And this one fateful night, they encountered what we consider to be a portal. Um, the team was dispatched to the Meadow. We break off into small teams, like sets of people. We never go out in this field by ourselves. We have constant communication with base camp, and so the team hiked into the Meadow that night, and they were all sitting around in different parts of the Meadow, teams of 2 to 3 people, and there was a team of three, and they were looking into. It's just an open field surrounded by a bunch of trees, a big tree line. We do have a lot of UFO and orb activity. We have a lot of orbs out there. Um, and so they were just sitting around. Everyone was sitting and observing. And one of the gentlemen, David Pardue, actually noticed in his FLIR camera that there was a large square that showed up in the field. And he thought he was seeing things. He thought that maybe his eyes were deceiving him because it was very out of place. And so he watched it for a little while, and he noticed that it looked like it had a door on it, or two doors and crosses. I think it was one door and two crosses on it, like X's on each side of it. And it looked like a cube. Well, he handed his FLIR over to Terry, another guy on the team, and they were both observing this square cube out in the middle of the field that just appeared out of nowhere. it was about the size of a small shed like you'd have behind your house. And so they dispatched one of the other teams from across the way over to go check this square out because they didn't nobody knew what this thing was. And so two of the teammates, actually three of them, walked over to the area where this cube was. When they got there, the third person that was on the first team, Kristen, turned her camera on, okay, her thermal imaging camera, and was observing and filming as two of our teammates walked over to it, who, by the way, are both former military. One was Special Forces Army, and the other is in the Navy, law enforcement, search and rescue guys, and very aware of their surroundings. Okay,
Mhm.
and they walked up to where this big box was, but they could not see it with their own eyes. They could only be guided over to where it was by the people who were looking in it through their imaging cameras, their thermals. And so they got over to where it was, and like I said, they couldn't see anything, and they were guided over right to where it was. And they said both of them described it as though the environment changed. Okay, their thermal heat signature disappeared when they got over to it.
Mm.
And this is an open field. They should not have disappeared. There was nothing in the way to have blocked the view of their heat signatures. But they said that as they walked over to it, the vegetation on the ground changed. The stars disappeared. They couldn't see the stars anymore. Bob actually described it as walking through a black velvet curtain into another room, and the temperature changed. It was a little bit colder. The ground went from muddy and brushy and hard to walk on to a smooth ground, and it was just dark. And they sat in there and they observed it. They didn't know they were in there. They were just standing in a field still, but the environment had changed around them. And by the way, both of them are trained in remote viewing as well. And so we're all trained to really notice energy shifts and to notice the subtleties and the energy shifts and things like that. And they both knew that there was something wrong, that it wasn't normal. And after they observed for just about a minute, they walked out, and their heat signatures reappeared. Okay. Well, all the while, Kristen is filming this, and in the box, the cube, we call it the cube, it actually started to shrink down after they walked out of it. It started to dissipate, and then it moved, and it disappeared eventually.
Wow.
So
So you actually have this on film.
yes, the head of our team has that on film. Yes.
Have you put it on the internet? Is it available for people to see? Not
No,
yet.
not yet, not yet,
Wow.
but we have it. Yes,
Does it appear well on the film? Does it look good on, I mean,
you can
clear
see
that
it.
you can see what's going on?
Yes, you can see it.
Wow. So
Oh yeah.
what's the plan?
Well, Trey, the head of our team, actually wrote a book about it, and there are pictures of the cube in the book, still shots. Um, he he may or may not be working on a documentary about this, and so I believe it will be made public probably pretty soon. I'd say within the next year, maybe, hopefully.
Wow.
But I actually since I do started doing all of this research, I've been doing this for about 12 years, and I did not go public with my research at all until around 20. I guess it was last year, about a year ago. And so I spoke at Camp Disclosure here in Georgia, and right after that, I was asked to go on a podcast or shows, and then I was asked to do my own show, and I've done four of them since then.
Wow.
And so what I do is I like to bring all my teammates on my shows to tell their own stories about exactly what happened, because there were a lot of our team out there in the field that night. Um, and everyone we had a lot of weird activity other than just that portal that went on that night, including a person who showed up at base camp who seemingly, this is during the height of the cube showing up, a woman showed up with a business outfit on. Okay, which is very odd because this is out in the middle of nowhere. It's an undisclosed location, but we don't have visitors out there
So
ever.
what do you mean by a business outfit?
Well, I was not there. The way she
Okay.
was described was that she had on loafer type shoes.
Okay.
Like we all have on our camo, our hiking boots, and
Yeah.
looking like we've been camping and hiking all day. And this lady shows up with I believe they said she had a blazer on or just something she might have worn to work.
Okay.
And but she seemed to be very intoxicated, or something was just off with her. And she was trying to get the team to go with her to another location, um, trying to pull them away from what was going on out there to go investigate some kind of, I think she called them monkey bears
Of
down
what?
the road. Monkey bears is what
Wow.
she was saying. So it was just very odd, very odd. And she happened to know a couple of the guys that were at camp. She knew their names and had said she went to school with them. And it was just very, very odd behavior. And that this woman just kind of showed up out of nowhere.
Okay, a couple questions. So how far from the road? Is this far from like somebody would just wander in off a road? Are you pretty far off the road?
It's pretty far off the road. Yes,
Yeah.
the base camp is accessible. People can get to it, kind of easily, I guess. But the meadow is not. You have to hike in a pretty long ways to get there.
Okay. Back to the film. How long is the film?
I don't. It's a few minutes. It's a
Okay.
few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And can
not
you
super long or super short.
okay, can you explain what the camera's about? You're talking about FLIR camera. Can you talk about what kind of shot this is? Is this infrared? Is this just ordinary or
Yeah,
what
it's
kind of
it's kind of an infrared. It just shows the heat signatures of them. I don't know a whole lot about you know the FLIRs and things like that because I don't own a FLIR. Everyone on my team does except for me. So I'm always borrowing one from somebody. But yeah, it's Kristen's FLIR camera, and it was a heat signature was what was shown. Okay, and I have to note too that the cube signature changed its heat signature. Um, it went from I believe it showed up hot and then it turned cold.
wow.
Okay, so the color actually changed in the course of them seeing this thing.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
fascinating because
it is.
I was actually asked by someone associated with the CIA to do a bunch of shows on portals, and I think they're kind of interested in this kind of stuff. I mean, they because we were out at Mount Shasta and they were very interested in that whole thing. So, I mean, you've got an interesting film. I'd make sure you've got a few copies of it and
Yes, they
prep
do.
and stuff. Yeah, so that'll be exciting when it comes out because that's maybe a first in terms of
Mhm.
catching. A lot of people have described being in them. Did these
Yes,
guys talk inside? Do you know if they talked to each other inside the when they were inside? And
they did.
was their voice normal when they talked inside?
Yeah, I believe so. I actually have interviewed Bob. Okay, Bob Grumpy Wilson. We call him Grumpy.
Okay.
Okay, he has been on one of my shows, and I have an interview, a very in depth interview with him on site at the Meadow, on my YouTube channel. The
Okay.
Cryptid Huntress is my YouTube channel,
The
and
cryptid hunters. Okay.
yes, the
Okay.
Cryptid Huntress, and you can find that both interviews there. He doesn't do a lot of interviews now, but I have to also note that after the two gentlemen went into, we say into the cube, but just went over to the cube, both of them got uh, sick, sick, and we carry Geiger meters, Geiger counters, which measure radiation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of times when we have any kind of paranormal activity out in the field, there's a spike of radiation. Now it might just be a tiny little spike,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's a spike. And so there was a spike in that area where the cube showed up that day. Um, Tim has passed away since this happened, and he was only 56. He was pretty young.
And
And
he was
and Bob,
inside. He was
yes,
inside.
mhm.
Okay. And what did he pass away from?
He had, I believe, it was a heart attack, something
Oh,
to do with his heart.
okay.
He started having heart problems. Now we're not saying that that's
Yeah. Yeah.
connected, but it is interesting, something to think about. And also Bob had a very aggressive form of cancer that reappeared. He had it some years ago, and he's been dealing with that ever since. So
So
we're
that's
we're
what
not.
those are that's the what you're calling the sicknesses. Was there any other
Yes,
sicknesses that they
no,
had?
just those.
Okay.
It was pretty major.
And how long ago was this cube? How long ago was this story that's happened?
I want to say it was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, my son was around 3,
Okay.
because I actually have a video of him that night that the portal opened there. I had come home that evening, and my son was playing around on my elliptical machine. Okay, and I had it in my front living room, which is very fancy, I know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but but he was wearing a diaper, okay, or like
Yeah.
some pull up
Yeah.
underwear, so I can't make the video public because it's not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
But he had on some kind of, I think it was just his underwear, okay, and he was on the elliptical, and his father was filming him with his camera phone, and I was called into the living room by his dad. He said, "Hey, come here, you got to see this." And as I walked in, I saw these two balls, which I thought were moths, some kind of a bug, flying around my son. And my son was watching them as my was my ex-husband now, but he was he was filming him, and these balls of light were floating around my son, and my son was watching them and pointing to them, saying, "Mom, ball, ball." And I in the video, I'm obviously, you can tell that I'm trying to make sense of what I'm looking at, and I'm someone who's seen ghosts and a lot of orbs my whole life, and all sorts of paranormal stuff. And my son was seeing it, and his dad could not see them at all with his own eyes, but he could only see them through his camera phone he could see them through the phone. And I walked in, and I said, "Oh, okay, those are orbs. Okay, they're floating around and dancing." And they both shot towards the camera and shut the camera off. And I do have that video as well.
Shut the
But
camera off? What do you mean? It just
it shut
went
the
black?
camera down. It shut the whole phone down.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let me ask you just a side question. Why were you not at the site that night? Why were you not with the team?
because I had a small child at home, and I had to get home to my kid.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and his dad
And
had to
then
work.
these
Yeah,
these what color were the orbs or
they
ball?
were white. They were white. Yeah,
Okay. Are you
white
coming on the
orbs.
orb show tomorrow to describe this?
I'm not sure if I got
Yeah.
it. If I get an
I think I
invite,
gave you a
I'll be
link.
there. Yeah, I'll be
We're
there.
talking about orbs. We've got a bunch of people on a panel. They're going to talk about orbs.
Oh yeah, I will
Because
be
I've studied
there.
this for a
I will
number of
be
years,
there.
and I've brought in people with collections of orbs. Have you got a collection of orb photographs?
I do have some. I do have
Wow.
some
Wow.
actually. Yeah,
Well, make sure you
I'll
got
have
them
to
ready
dig
to
them
go.
up.
Make sure you got them ready to
Yeah.
go because a lot of people are going to be a lot of people have collections of thousands and thousands of pictures. So, what do you
Mm,
think the orbs are? You've got a lot of training in this. Just a guess.
yeah.
You don't
Well,
know for sure, but
they're
we're
all different. They're all different, and I think that those two were probably hitchhikers. Something that probably followed me home from the meadow, I believe,
so you were at
because
the meadow earlier in the night.
yes, I
Oh,
was
I
early
see.
that
Okay,
day.
okay. So
I
that
had
is
been there all weekend. Yeah, and then I came home.
oh, I
Uh,
see. Okay, that is even more related. Yeah.
yes, yes. So I had been there the whole time with the team, and then I left right before that night when they went to the meadow and encountered the cube. I had to go home, and so I missed all the action there. But I brought some action home with me, apparently.
Wow. And
Yes,
what's the name of the book?
it's called the Meadow Project.
Okay, and it's on Amazon.
Explorations.
People can get it on Amazon.
It is. It's by Trey Hudson,
Okay.
and you can get it on Amazon. The Meadow Project: Explorations into the South Skinwalker Ranch.
Wow. And it talks about the woman coming, and it talks about your orb experience and
It
all that's in
does.
there. Was there
It
anything
does.
else that happened that night that was sort of unusual?
Hmm. The main things were the lady that showed up,
Yeah.
and the portal, and also they had seen some what we call light beings out in the woods as well, and they have that documented as well. So yeah,
Same night?
same night. Yes, same
Okay,
night.
so
Because light.
explain what these beings are. How do you describe these beings then?
Well, they're just like, they look like little, you can just see there's heat signatures. I believe they kind of look like aliens to me, but I
What's
don't
the
know.
height? What was the height?
Yeah, they were small. They were pretty small.
Wow. And
I
that's
can't.
on
I think
film
they're around
too?
3 feet.
They got that on film too?
I believe we have that captured as well.
Oh my goodness, you guys have a major story here
We
going.
have a lot of stuff. Yes, we have a lot of stuff. Is those are actually, there's a picture of them in Trey's book, I believe. Yeah, a still
The
shot.
beings on the film.
Hmm.
Wow. Has the
Yeah,
book done well? Has it gotten a lot of publicity? Do people,
yeah.
I've never heard this story before. And so I heard you tell it on Dave Scott's show.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a show on Dave Scott's channel now. So
Yeah, yeah,
after I talked to Dave, I eventually became a weekend host at Spaced Out Radio.
yeah. Good for
So
you. Good
thank
for
you.
you.
It's a lot of fun. Have a good time. Um, but yeah, Trey has done the circuit of, I say the circuit, going around and doing a lot of interviews. He's
Yeah.
been doing interviews since he wrote the book. That was in 2020.
Wow.
And so for the past year or so, Trey, he's been on Coast to Coast and things like that. I'm not
Okay.
sure to the extent
Yeah.
as how much other stuff he's done, but he's definitely done this circuit. I say.
Do you happen to know by any chance 2020 what the month was?
I have to. I don't remember. I have my book right over there, and so I can go grab it. I don't remember the month. I don't remember.
Yeah.
You mean I thought you were talking about the meadow. You're talking about his book.
The Meadow experience with the portal and all the rest of the
I
stuff.
I, I want to say it was around like April or something of 2017, maybe.
Oh, 2017. What was the 2020 event you were
That was
talking
when
about?
he wrote the book.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's when he
Because
wrote the book.
there was a major portal. Well, they call it a Zendra. If you follow Mission Rama, they
Uh-huh.
call them Zendras. There's a major Zendra event happened in August of 2020. So I was thinking
Oh,
2017. That would have been the year that I had the event at Mount Shasta. But it wasn't a portal event. It was a weird event, but I went to Mount Shasta and had an experience there. That's a fascinating story. And so what's the summation theories about what the portal is? I mean, you guys have probably discussed this for many years. What do you think the
oh
portal
yeah.
represented?
Well, we don't know for sure. And we call it a portal because we don't know what else to call it.
Yeah,
Okay. And there's also other stuff that goes on out there that is unexplainable, like Bigfoot. Let's just say we have Bigfoot tracks out there.
yeah,
We're tracking Sasquatch, and the footprints disappear. You follow a track line, and they disappear into thin air, seemingly in the meadow.
yeah,
So, and vehicle tracks, truck tracks. They appear and disappear out of thin air out there. It's like something's driving into a portal and just disappearing. And there's really no access for a truck or a car to be driving to there.
yeah.
So we have a lot of very interesting
So,
anomalies.
okay, so let's go to the portal, the Sasquatch for a second. I'll tell you an experience I had because you guys are working in a forested area. So people always say, "Oh, the thing is hiding or whatever." I live in a place where there's the area where it occurred. It's as flat as any place in the world. We always have this joke: you can let your dog go and watch him run away for days. And there are literally one tree per mile. So I was called to fence outside a former Air Force base, a small town, and the woman had a kid had colic in the middle of the night, and the window was 9 feet off the ground, and this being was looking in the window, and she freaked
Mm.
out. The dog down the street was trying to come off the chain. It was on a metal chain, and the guy thought the dog was going to choke itself to death. It was trying to get off the chain to go after her, or whatever this was. So they had an Aboriginal tracker who took me on the trail in behind the house. There was a little bit of trees along sort of a small creek that was there. It went along the creek. It went through the couple of trees and then into this opening of the trees. And you could see all the broken branches as it went into there. And then the way he described it is he was 250 pounds, and it was snow had melted and then it had frozen again. And he said he could walk on the snow and he wouldn't break through. This thing was breaking through the snow. So it was at least over 250 pounds. And it went into the forest, and as you described, it went at the middle and the snow tracks, and it just stopped as if something had picked it up. So what's your impression? Do you think, because you know the theory that there's a lot of people think that they're spiritual beings, they're physical beings. What do you think? Because me, when I saw that, either a UFO is picking this thing up, or it's some sort of etheric being that can disappear at will. Because the tracks did stop in the middle of this clearing, and you
Yeah.
can't hide. That's why I said if you have a 9 foot or 10 foot being, and you got one tree per mile, it's pretty hard for them to hide.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, my team, we like to call it the X factor of
Yeah,
Bigfoot. There's an X factor, and there's very supernatural, in my opinion. We have experienced, people on my team, we've experienced flashes of light. After hearing footsteps around our base camp, a flash of light, and then they're gone. Um, I believe that, yeah, after experiencing what we call the portal, and having two people walk into this portal and walk back out, I do believe that they are either coming and going through a portal, or who knows? There are oftentimes UFOs in the environment when we're experiencing Sasquatch, and that's in different places that we research. I'm actually a member of 3 different research teams, and we all conduct our research a little bit differently,
Mhm.
and so it just depends on who I'm with and where we're at. But we have a lot of Bigfoot activity, especially up in North Georgia, and that's things get really weird. Okay, they get really weird with these Bigfoots, in regards to cloaking, I guess you can call it. I've had incidences or 8 incident where I was walking in an open field. I was being what we call bait.
Okay.
Okay. And I was walking up to a tree line by myself in an open field, and the guys were down at the bottom of the hill watching through their thermal imaging cameras, and something ran up behind me and knocked my legs out from behind me or underneath me,
Mhm.
and kept running, but there was nothing there. So, stuff like that happened. So I'm not sure what they do exactly. But I think that there is something. Maybe they're just not in the spectrum of what we can see with our own eyes. Like we don't have the rods and the cones in our eyes to be able to detect whatever they're doing, or they're able to shift their frequency somehow.
Mhm.
I believe it's just a matter of them being on a different frequency than us, vibrationally and energetically.
Do you think
But
it's
I
all
don't
linked?
know.
Do you think all the phenomena are linked together?
In some strange way, I do. Yes, I do. Now, I've never seen a Bigfoot get on a spacecraft, but
Yeah,
they've been in the same environment together.
yeah. And why do you think that it would knock your legs out from under you? Because I have a theory on that, but I just want to hear your version of why they would, whatever it is, would do that to you.
It was playing. It was playing with me. It was not anything threatening at all. It was just kind of like a "ha, I gotcha" kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Um, Maybe it was a juvenile or something. I mean, I can't say for sure it was even a Sasquatch,
yeah,
but I believe it could have been.
yeah.
Maybe it was some sort of an initiation. I don't know on my part or theirs. I have no idea.
I did a lecture actually for Dave, had a conference, Dave Scott, and I actually gave a lecture called the theory of wow, where I say that all they're doing is they want you to go wow. They want you to go, what's going on here? Like,
I did that.
and you realize that the world is not the world you think it is, and that's what they want
Yes.
you to realize. It's like the world is different. You got to take a look. Something else is going on here. You're not alone, and all this kind of stuff. And they want you to figure it out. They're not going
Yeah.
to appear and tell you what's going on. They want, so they do this weird stuff where it doesn't make any sense. Like, the idea where, why would they wake you up before they take you on board the ship? They wake you up and go, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then as soon as you wake up, they put their hand on your head and say, go to sleep again. And then you go to
Yeah.
sleep again. Why would they scare the living daylights out of you by waking you up and stuff like that? So I call it the theory of wow, where they just like, they're doing this playful thing. With their plane, they come as close to the plane as possible when they're flying by. So the guy gets, totally, or why would
Yeah.
they, like in the incident with the incident at the Nimitz, where the UFO drops from 89,000 feet down to sea level, or 80,000 feet down to sea level in 7/8 of a second. Why are they doing
Yeah.
that? They just want you to go, wow, that's not
Wow.
possible.
Yeah.
It's very playful. That's what I think as well. And
Yeah.
let me ask you about setting. So do people have weapons there? Are people
Mhm.
allowed to bring weapons and guns and stuff like that?
Yes.
Oh, they are. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah. Well, it's very dangerous out where we go. It's
Yeah.
dangerous anywhere in the woods, okay? Because we have a lot of large animals out there, mountain lions, cougars, bears,
Yeah.
rattlesnakes, copperheads, um, all
Yeah.
that
The
kind of stuff.
yeah, the idea with that I said is, like, I look at all the injuries that they have. They're reporting these injuries, and there's almost always a gun involved. It's sort of like
Mhm.
it's reflective of your attitude. So if you come
Yeah.
hunting the skinwalker, suddenly the skinwalker turns around and it's hunting you. And because
Right.
the guys the special forces guys, were both these guys special forces guys that went inside the portal
Ruth
thing?
Retired. Yes. Well, one of them was, well,
Retired,
one,
whatever. Yeah, they've
he
got the
was
training.
retired. Yes. But yes, he would consider himself that still.
So
He
they
was
would have
still
been
active.
armed when they went inside.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so
Yes.
let me ask another question. Do you ever bring animals like dogs there to see their reactions, whether dogs will react or cats will react or anything like that?
At one of our spots, yes, there's one gentleman that's on my team that used to bring his dog,
Okay.
but I don't bring my dog. She would not fare well out there. She's a big German Shepherd, and I don't want anything to happen to her because I'm afraid that Sasquatch, these portals. I mean, it's very dangerous in many ways, including there's a lot of missing people uh, from national parks and forests all over the country and all over the world. They go missing without a trace. I don't take my son out to where we research at all. He's only 8, and I'm you take your eyes off your kid or anybody for 1 second, they could be gone.
Yeah. But you consider the phenomena dangerous, like when you're dealing with this in the meadow?
Absolutely,
Okay.
very dangerous. Yes, we take it very seriously,
Yeah.
and
But
like I
you've
say,
had,
we're
okay, what injuries have you had? You had the two guys that were injured that were in the portal,
yeah,
or
no,
it's related.
we haven't had any injuries, not that
Yeah.
I know of. We take care of ourselves and we wear protective clothing and things like that in case there's snakes out.
Okay.
And not everybody goes out there armed, not everybody.
No,
But
but I mean,
however,
I can see that I mean, but I'm saying the phenomena, not the area. The area I can see would be dangerous, but the phenomena itself. Because I mean, if it wanted to take, do you think you could stop it if it decided that it was going to,
no.
instead of just knocking you off your feet, knock you, kill you or whatever, that it could do that?
Oh, you know what? You can't control, especially with the ETs, I believe. There's not a whole lot you can do
Yeah.
out there. And I actually had a very profound ET experience, a UFO experience, the first time I was out in the field on an expedition.
Okay. Tell
Uh,
me about that. So how long have you guys been going to this? Is it the same meadow that everybody goes to all the time?
It's different. This is another location. This is they're all over the South, and there's one place that I go to. Well, we go to all these places regularly, but the first place that I went to is kind of my original research spot up in the mountains. I the night that I first got there was when I was bait, and I walked up that open field. We call it the UFO field now
Yeah.
because of what happened. And so I had my legs knocked out from underneath me, and one of the guys had seen a Bigfoot peek its head around a tree right in front of me as
Wow.
I was walking, but I couldn't see it because I didn't have any kind of night vision or thermal imaging or anything. I just It was just me with my naked eyes up
Yeah.
there. So, but something pulled me over to that area, and so I went and I stood right in front of a tree, and there was apparently a Bigfoot behind it.
Wow.
Um, and so we knew that there was activity there. So the second night, um, one of the guys and I, the guy who had seen the Bigfoot through his camera, he and I decided to break off into a team and go up to that field and sit there early in the day and blend into the environment. And later that night, around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, the whole team, which was like a huge group of people, were going to go up and sit in this open field and take their camping chairs and drums and didgeridoos or whatever they had and just act loud and like normal humans, real rambunctious,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so they went out. We're going to go do that. And so the point being is that he and I would be sitting there blended into that environment, and maybe a Bigfoot would walk over and step on us, trying to get to those people to see what the action was out there in that field. So we sat out there from about 3 in the afternoon. I think we got back to base camp around 1 a.m. So we were out there for a while. Um, and while we were sitting out there before the group came out, we were watching the sky. We were both leaned up against a tree with our backs to each other, kind of. But we could see there was a good view of a mountain beside us and the stars, the sky, and the woods, and all. We had a good vantage point to see whatever we needed to see. And so as we're sitting there, we started noticing some strange things were going on. We were looking up to the sky, And there were a lot of airplanes that night, but there were also what looked like airplanes, but they were moving in triangular patterns. They weren't airplanes. And so we had been sitting there for a while where I thought, well, maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. And so we were both we talked about it, and we both decided, we figured out. He told me, he said, here, hold your finger like this and let it just sit there. Don't let it move, and see where the thing moves. It was moving in like a triangle, and there was more than one. And then a light came out of nowhere on the side of the mountain, right directly across from us. And we thought that it was a car headlights. Okay. And so we were sitting there watching this car, and it was just one light though, which I thought was odd. And it started moving directly in one line horizontally across the mountain. Well, we know that mountain, there's trails there, but there's no trail that's straight across in one line. And then the light went back the other direction in a straight line. And we noticed it's not underneath the trees, it's on top of the trees.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we knew there was something weird about that too. It wasn't a car. We were trying to think, was it somebody holding a lantern? What could that be? Um, well, yeah, I had my recording device on, and I had it on the whole time I was out there, for the most part. And while all this was happening, I remember feeling really tired, and I couldn't figure out why I was so tired, because I shouldn't have been that tired. And eventually, some things happened to us while we were out there. That's actually why my entire team was trained in remote viewing,
Mhm.
was to go back and look at stuff like that, that happened to he and I. Now the team did come out there. Let's just say that that was not just a light; that was actually a craft.
Okay.
Um, and so the team came out there, did their thing. They were super, loud and obnoxious and making Bigfoot whoop calls and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any action with the Bigfoot. However, some red lights came on about 10 feet from where we were sitting in the woods. And the group thought that it was he and I, because they didn't know where we were hiding, in the woods, but it was actually not us. And it was right beside us. And at some point that night, my recording device picked up on what sounded like bottle rockets being shot off all around me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, and we didn't hear that with our own ears. So that was really odd. But we did go back and did some remote viewing of what that was, and it was actually a little. We believe it was a spacecraft that detected us in the environment, and it was actually trying to find us. They knew there was something up,
Yeah.
and it
So
found us.
do you do multiple people do the same target?
Yes,
And you're
we do. We
using
have a team.
what kind of remote viewing are you using?
Yeah, well, we use different types modes of remote viewing. We've been trained in coordinate remote viewing is what we usually use.
Okay.
But enhanced remote viewing, uh, different modes. We've been training. We trained for several years in
Yeah.
different
And I
modes.
understand you do remote viewing for people.
No, not privately. No, I usually don't. I do remote viewing though. I have a little show that I do on Fridays,
Yeah.
where I look into paranormal stuff, and so yes, I do. But I don't do it for I don't do it for people. Just regular remote viewing targets.
Okay.
Just for my show. It takes a lot out of me. I also our team, sometimes we're tasked with helping to find missing people, and working with law enforcement and things like that. So
So how
I
many
do
shows do
that.
you have? Tell me
Oh
all
my
your
gosh,
shows. Oh,
I do. Well, I have a show on my YouTube channel on Wednesdays called A Glitch in the Matrix. At the Cryptid Huntress, I do that during the day, 12 p.m. Eastern time, and then on Fridays I have my remote viewing show on with Texas Front Porch on YouTube and on my YouTube channel. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I'm a weekend host at Spaced Out Radio, and I have a show. I interview people about cryptids, mostly paranormal stuff.
wow. You're a
So yeah,
busy
yeah,
girl.
I have a lot of fun. Yes,
Wow. And you're able to sort this all out and keep it going and
I
come,
have a lot of
come
plates in the air, but yes,
yeah.
so far.
Wow. And why the field? Why that particular field? What was how did you guys originally go to that field? What was interesting about it? And
Well,
related question, why is the phenomena there?
yeah, well, that's a great, those are great questions. The one field where the UFO was, well, there's UFOs just about everywhere we go. But the original field, that's an area where the team had been investigating for many years. Okay, before I came on board with them, that's one field. Now the other place, the Skinwalker Ranch of the South, the fellows were sent over that direction because of local legends and lore of the area. Uh, any place that has a story behind it, a pig man, a goat man, a ghost road or a witch or anything like that. A lot of times you go to those areas and they're areas of high strangeness. So, Bigfoot, dog man, all that stuff. If you hear about it, there's probably something to it. Especially if it goes way back, if the stories are passed down for generations, and so there were stories of it being a ghost road in that area, and so that's why the guys went down there, and also it may or may not be an area of a missing persons cluster kind of thing from the missing 411 with David Politis. There's one not too far from where we investigate.
Okay. And the phenomena, it's interested in that area for what reason? You got any hypotheses or anything?
That's a good question. I believe that, first of all, I believe that it's not just the land. I think it's the people who go out there. Okay. And I know that may sound kind of crazy to
Mhm.
some people, but I believe it's the people who are investigating it. Um, you're on a different vibration perhaps, or like I had mentioned earlier, my child's father could not see that phenomena at all with his eyes. He could only see it through a device, and my son and I could see it with our own eyes. So it could be the people. I believe that a lot of that land out there has seen a lot of bloodshed. For instance, civil wars, battles with the Native Americans out there. You name it. I think that the land holds the history, and with I think it's called the stone tape theory, perhaps. There's a lot of spirits out there. We do things like the Estes session where you're communicating with spirits and things like that. So uh, the activity is strong out there. Maybe it's because there's a portal there. Could be that.
Okay, now let's go back to your personal life. This starts very early with you. I mean, are you sensitive? Do you think?
Mhm.
And what I always ask people, do you think you're on a mission?
Yes, yes, and yes. I do. I
Okay.
believe I am.
Okay. So,
Yes.
so so tell me about your history of weird stuff and when it started and how it all worked. And is anybody else in your family, like, is it passed down from anybody?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I was seeing dead people and things like that, like the typical person who's into this stuff, I guess. But I had a fascination with ghosts and with UFOs. Okay. I did a show yesterday about a very famous fortune teller from here in Georgia named Mahaley Lancaster. And when I was a little kid, my grandmother wrote a story for me about Mahaley Lancaster, and I told it at a storytelling contest, and I won the storytelling
Wow,
contest.
wow,
I won the county-wide storytelling contest.
wow,
Okay,
wow,
and so it was interesting that I told a story about the fortune teller, and my prize was a set of encyclopedia books about outer space and
wow.
UFOs and black holes and wormholes and things like that. So it's weird how that really launched me into loving and being interested in the things that I'm doing even today, you know. But I do come from a long line of very sensitive women, psychically switched on women. Of course, they didn't they didn't look at it in that way, or very devout Christian women, in my family. My great grandmother, for instance, she lived in North Georgia before she passed away. She and my great aunt had UFO encounters, but
Wow.
they didn't consider them that. They were actually, by the way, very very psychic. Every woman in my family, down the line on both sides of my family.
Okay.
Um, but my great grandmother and my great aunt were driving down a highway in Rome, Georgia, back in the 1980s at night, and a light came down over their car and enveloped the entire car while they were driving.
Wow.
And the next thing they know, they kind of snapped out of it. Like they kind of had been, they don't know what happened. They just said the light came down. They were 20 miles down the road in another county. And I think they said 2 hours had passed and they were driving in another county.
Wow.
Um, Now, my great grandmother and my aunt, my great grandmother had the Ten Commandments in her front yard. Okay, so it was
Wow.
that kind of a thing, and so she she attributed that to angels taking them out of harm's way. That there had to have been a wreck that they were taken out, taken away from or something
Yeah.
that saved them. But nonetheless, it's all about perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And you give me an example of ghosts that you saw. How early was that? And would you get messages from them or?
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, the most notable ghosts that I saw were my brother passed away in a car accident
Oh yeah,
when I
that's
was
right.
a
Yeah,
when I
tell me
was a
about
young
that.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was that was when I was in my 20s,
Okay.
and my little brother passed away in a car accident. He was a race car driver, and he was in one of his cars, and tires blew out. He had a horrific car accident, and it was horrible. That was a really hard time for my family and I, and a lot of my psychic gifts, I guess, and my mediumship abilities really ramped up during that time. I guess because I started experiencing a lot of paranormal activity. Um, my brother came to visit me right
Yeah.
after he
Tell me
passed
about that.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the week before, the night before, I think it was around the night before he visited. I had a couple that came to visit me that was wearing like Victorian era clothing, and they were speaking to me, telling me thank you, thank you, thank you.
I mean, is this
Um,
like in a dream or is this like
no,
to
this
the?
was real life. This was I woke up and there were two people sitting and standing by my bed,
Oh,
just as
well, I didn't hear
plain
this
as
part of
you
the
and
story.
I.
And so
Yeah,
what did they say to you?
they just kept telling me thank you, thank you, thank you, but their mouths weren't moving,
Okay.
but I could hear their voices, so it was telepathic. But they were solid. The woman was knelt by my bed, and there was a man standing behind her.
Wow.
Um, and so, and here's the thing: I was having a really hard time with us donating my brother's organs. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I believe looking back on that, I think that they were there to thank me for saying, let's do it, and but
Wow.
that did happen, and I believe it was perhaps some ancestors or of some of the people that were getting his organs, perhaps, but I'm not sure.
And that was the
Um,
night after or
that was
after the
right
accident?
after he had his accident.
Accident. Okay.
I believe he may have still been on life support or
Yeah.
he had just died.
Yeah.
And so shortly after he died, within the next day or two, I awoke to a whole bunch of green orbs floating around me one night,
Wow.
and they were illuminated, and they just kept kind of dancing around me, and they started from the floor up. They began forming into a pair of shoes
Yeah.
and jeans and up to a polo shirt. And it was my brother. It formed
Wow.
into my brother. Yeah. And he actually sat down on the bed. I could feel the bed move. And he leaned over and he kissed me on my forehead. And then
Wow.
he was gone. Yeah.
So he was like he appeared solid, like a
He was not solid. He was actually transparent and
okay.
green and glowing. Yeah,
Wow.
it was very odd, but very beautiful too because it gave me some closure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when how many the night after he died
Um,
or
Whew, sorry.
yeah, no.
Yeah, it was around the week. It was the week he died. Yeah.
Wow. That's a fascinating story.
Oh yeah.
Wow. See, so what do you think the message or for people that, haven't had ghost experiences or don't know what's going on in life, what would be your tale for them about what happens when we die? What's your take on it?
Well, I personally believe that I like to believe that we move on. I believe in reincarnation, and that we come here, and I believe I've had many lives here before, and on probably on other planets.
Yeah, yeah,
I believe that we just move on, and we come here to learn our lessons,
Okay.
and you get some soul growth and to help the planet, help humanity, whatever needs to be done here, and then we move on.
Well,
And it's always learning
I'm on the
about life.
same page as you. I'm on the
Yeah.
same page. So how many beings have you seen by your bed? I mean, is this a regular occurrence?
Okay. Well, this is where it gets fun. Okay.
Okay.
So, so I've seen lots of what I guess what you could call spirits. Okay.
Okay.
But now in my adult years, now that I'm a seasoned old lady over here, you know,
I'm
I
33. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But now I question all of the ghosts that I saw when I was younger, because when I had the experience out in the field with the UFO flying over our heads and all that kind of stuff, the head of my team said, "Well, I think it's time for you guys to start reading on alien abductions."
Yeah.
And here I am, a Bigfoot field researcher, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I've been abducted out in the field. What the heck? This is do I what am I doing? Why what are we doing out there?" I went looking for a Bigfoot and I found aliens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had us read books like The Threat and Communion, Secret Life. Okay. And so you go down the rabbit hole of alien abductions and UFOs and things like that. And I started reading about them, and I woke up at night one night and I had two aliens in my bedroom.
Okay. So describe them.
Okay, they were standing in my doorway, and they were, I'm going to say about 3.5, 4 feet tall, maybe. One of them was a little bit taller than the other one, and they were just standing there looking at me. And of course, it's that typical thing where you see them and then you figure out what you're looking at, and then you go to sleep. You fall right back to
Exactly.
sleep, right?
Okay.
It was the wow thing, like you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that happened. I actually, every time that I had something visit me, I try to draw it. So I have some drawings. I'm not sure where I put that drawing, but I think I gave it to but I can still draw it. I can draw it right now because I can still see it in my
Wow.
mind.
So you're like
Um,
an artist? Are you artistic?
I
No.
mean, I'm not a professional artist by any means, no, but I am able to draw what I see.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe send me a drawing of it, and then we'll use it as the thumbnail when I post it, and you
Oh
can.
my gosh. Well, I actually have another story
Okay.
that I do have that drawing. I have it. My son was actually in the bed with me. My ex-husband, my husband at the time,
Yeah.
had used to go to work very early in the morning, and this, I think it happened around 4, 5 in the morning, maybe. Both of these incidences. But I remember both times because I had another incident where I woke up and there was a large cloaked figure standing by my bed. It had on a robe with a hood on it. And it was something that was almost as tall as my ceiling, and it looked like the Grim Reaper, but his hands were up like this. Okay. It was like a praying mantis. Okay. That's what the only way I can describe it. And it was standing by, and the way it moved, it was very unnatural. It wasn't like a human or
Yeah.
ghost or whatever you want to call it. It was something different. And so I do have a drawing of that.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you a question. I had the honor of meeting Tyler D from American Cosmic. You read the book American Cosmic?
I have not yet.
Okay, so Tyler D is apparently the one of the key people inside the government who knows what's going on. He works at NASA. He's an engineer. He was friends with Chris Bledsoe. He's watching Chris Bledsoe, and he wanted to
Okay.
record what Chris Bledsoe was, the things that were happening around him. I met him at a cabin in Pennsylvania, and he told me about the experience that he had. He had this invention that sold for his company sold for millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he had this
Wow.
invention that came to him in the morning. He woke up in the morning, this idea was in his head, and he wanted it on the space shuttle. And they eventually put this experiment on the space shuttle, and it worked. And
Wow.
he said to me, he said, the last thing I remember the night when that happened, the night before, was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. So I asked him the question I'll ask you. Could you see its face?
No,
No,
I
that's
could not
exactly
see its face.
you can never see its face. Same as Jim Semivan tells the story.
I
If
just
you've
got
seen Jimmy
goosebumps.
Semivan
Yeah.
tells the story, he had beings in his room in the 1990s, and then his very close friend at the CIA died. He was ready to go that morning to Florida, and that night this hooded figure came through the wall and went out the other side and he couldn't see his face. And
Yeah.
then in the morning, he got the call that his friend had died. So it's always this
Wow.
thing like the hooded figure. And then the obvious question is, could you see his face? No.
No,
So why do you
that's
think the
funny.
face is blacked out?
I don't know. Well, it, it,
I
it
don't
was
know
it was
either.
not just blacked out. It was covered.
Yeah.
It was kind of covered and just shadowy. And my room was dark. And the interesting thing was my dogs were on the floor. I had two pit bulls. Okay, pit bull
Okay.
chocolate lab mixes,
Yeah.
completely knocked out. My son was completely knocked out in the bed beside me. He was just a little baby. Um, but nobody woke up, and I say nobody like my dogs are a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dogs did not move, and I drew that in the picture. The dogs were just, I was like, why are you not protecting me right now? you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. The,
um but then, another interesting thing that happened was that I fell asleep. Of course, it kind of,
yeah.
you just go
Yeah.
back to sleep.
Yeah.
And I had a dream that I was just, for lack of a better word, I was hanging out with the Munchkins from the Wizard of Oz. Was
Wow.
my dream, which was very unusual. And they kept telling me, stop beating up our mayor, you're going to get us in trouble, is what they kept telling me. They
Our
said,
mayor.
quit resisting, quit
Oh,
trying to
okay.
fight their mayor, like the governor of their town.
Wow.
So I did have a very strange dream, and I woke up thinking, that was a weird dream. Oh yeah, I saw that Grim Reaper thing by my bed last night. Okay. I've been so inoculated, Grant, to all of this high strangeness that nothing shocks me anymore.
Wow.
So
But
yeah.
you're like an antenna. I mean, it's almost like
Yeah.
you're vibrating at a higher level. And I talk about this as well, that, you get um, women who've had difficult childhoods for whatever reason that become very, very psychic. It's almost like they turn off, but it's the idea where I always say what you have is a field of knowledge.
Mhm.
40% of all experiences say at one point during the experience they knew the answer to everything. So the idea is everything is out there. 31% of near-death experience people say they knew the answer to everything at one point during the experience, and they forgot it when they came back. And so the idea that I say is that you have a situation where you have the left brain, which is the male brain, which is the voice, the ego, talk, 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 can't shut up, and creating the noise, and then the female brain is the right brain. And if you could shut the left brain down and pick the female brain will pick up with the message. And so you get a lot of women who are able to do this. And I'm so fascinated. And that's why I say that I think ufology sort of missed the boat in terms of the fact that they're interested in the lights in the sky, they're interested in the sightings and stuff like that. And then when it comes to the experiencers, the people who have actually interacted with the intelligence,
Mhm.
they will say, no, that's just anecdotal. We don't want to listen to that. And those are the people, like you are the people that people should be listening to, because you can actually describe things that are described in other stories. For example, the dogs. You say your dogs are knocked out. I had a woman from Sedona, Arizona, tell me the story of a Millab experience where she
Mhm.
was taken and she was getting dressed. They told her to get dressed, and she had her slippers, and the dog, he has a giant dog, was lying on one of the slippers, and she tried to move the dog to get the slipper so she could go. And she went with one slipper because the dog, she couldn't move the dog. The dog was completely knocked out. So you see
Wow.
these similarities when people start talking about like your son, or people will try to wake
Yeah.
up their spouse, wake up, and they're here, and they can almost sense that they're coming, and the partner's knocked out. It's almost like you're in your own little world, and they
Yeah.
shut off everything around you.
Well, or it's almost like time stops for everything else except
Yeah,
for you,
yeah. Or
you
you even
know?
see the thing with people on the road where people have an experience on the road, and then you say, "Hang on, can I ask you a question? Was there any other cars on the road?" And they go, "No." And is
Never.
it usually busy? Oh yeah, there's usually lots of cars. There's no cars? No, there's no cars. And that's the thing. It's sort of like and that's the thing is people have to start following the experiencer, because you start to see these things, or the crossovers to spirits. And that's where I say it may be the same thing, where spirits are vibrating at a different level. Your brother is at a different vibrating level, and
Mhm.
he's able to come in, lower his vibration, come in for a couple of
Mhm.
seconds, and then go back. And the
Yeah.
spirits are doing that, and the aliens are doing that. And that may be what the portal is, that they're able to change the vibration. That if you I don't know if you have you ever studied the Mission Rama people, out
No, I
of
haven't.
you'll have to get one of them on your show, because there's 25,000 of them. They started, two brothers started in 1974, the year before I had my sighting. And they were actually on the ships. They started by automatic writing. They got the first message of automatic writing, and then they were told to go to a certain location. They went there, and the flying saucer was there. And then they would take their friends on, and their parents came and saw the thing on the ground and stuff. And so they do this thing where they say they spend the whole weekend at Mount Shasta, and they've opened this Zendra a few times, and they'll actually take people into the Zendra, like 7 at a time into the Zendra, and then the next group goes in, and this thing is and then it starts to collapse. But anyway, they do this stuff at Mount Shasta, and I'm losing my train of thought here. What they do all weekend is they do a lot of meditation exercise, a lot of chanting, and all this kind of stuff. And what they're trying to do is raise the vibration. And then what they describe is the beings will lower their vibration, they raise their vibration, and this portal will open. But the thing is that one of the guys, Ricardo, Gonzalez will say, even before the thing happens, he knows whether they're going to show up, whether they're going to fly by, open a Zender or whatever. He can tell by the vibration, by the level of the people in the circle, that if the vibration is right, they'll come, and if it's not right, they won't come. You have to do that vibration thing. So that's where I think that you are at this higher vibration, and it's almost like you're a sensitive. Well, they call it a sensitive, eh? Mm-hmm. So you can pick this stuff up, whereas your husband or somebody else looking and they can't see it, or your son would be the same thing, that he can see these things where other people can't.
Yeah, well, that's like when you asked me earlier about why do I think those places are so haunted or have so much activity, and I said I don't think it's just the land there. I think it's the people who are out there investigating it.
Yeah.
I believe I have a team of extremely high vibrational, friends that are on my team, and we're all very psychically switched on. Yeah. We all utilize our enhanced human capabilities, and so we're very sensitive to all that kind of stuff. So we do get a lot of activity when we go out, and we get a lot of activity individually at our own houses, our homes, and around our communities. Wow. So, and another thing I was going to mention is that when I had the ET experiences in my home, they were speaking to me telepathically, and I didn't see any movement of the mouths or I don't even know if they had mouths. Okay, so I have no idea. But it made me question, what if all the times I've seen ghosts in my bedroom, the ghost, in air quotes, what if those were ETs the whole time? But I only knew ghost, and so that's what I was seeing. Maybe it was some sort of a screen memory or something. I don't know. I believe that my brother was my brother, though. I do firmly believe that. But all of the other things I saw, that could have been ET.
Yeah. Well, what do you interpret as ET? What do you think ET is?
I don't know. I used to think they were little beings from outer space. But now I'm not sure if they're from outer space. I don't know where they're, maybe interdimensional. I have no idea. The more I learn and the more I experience, the less I know, Grant.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. That's what I say. It's thousands. Yeah. When you really study it, it's 1,000 times more complex than people think it is. They think it's the ETs, and you get into it, and you just go, wow. You just understand the universe is much more magnificent than you could ever imagine. I mean, in terms of what it's able to do and what's going on. What did the ETs tell you? What was the message they gave you?
I don't recall exactly a message. I don't remember any kind of a message. There was nothing that was groundbreaking.
Oh, okay.
It was just some sort of, we're here, or you're okay, or something like that. It was very it was very blunt and just kind of like.
Have you been regressed? Have you done that route yet?
I attempted one regressive therapy, but I didn't get too far under. So I have not undergone that extensively. No, I have not.
Yeah, I tried that. Yeah, I didn't go very far either. But
yeah,
but I mean that's maybe you're not, the time isn't right.
I wasn't ready.
I
wasn't
in
ready.
fact, I just interviewed a guy out of New Zealand. It's pretty interesting. You might want to interview him because he's a Sasquatch guy. He's in contact with the Sasquatch for years. He's got a name. He talks to this. He gets these messages from the Sasquatch or whatever. And he was on with the beings on the board the ship, and he said that they're on the ship, and he couldn't see the beings' faces. It was like they were all blurred. The faces, the rest of the body was all like that. And he said, "Why can't I see your face?" And they said, "The time isn't right."
Yeah.
And so you get this thing where it may be, do you think there's a learning curve going on, that they're teaching you indirectly this and that, and they're taking you along a path?
I've been breadcrumb my whole life. I think that's what it is, and I
Yeah,
made that interesting connection with my grandmother teaching me about the famous fortune teller from over
yeah,
here,
yeah,
with Mahaley Lancaster, and me telling a story with the storytelling contest, and then receiving the
yeah,
award as the encyclopedias with the UFOs in them and the wormholes. And everything just kind of shows up on my path.
yeah.
I didn't go looking for Bigfoot. The team kind of I just kind of stumbled upon their lecture with my mom, and I'm everything just kind of happens for a reason. I don't think there's any coincidences in
Okay.
this world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. It's sort of like you've got a mission. And so what do you think the message is that you've got to get out to the world in terms of why you're being led down this path? What do you, and you'd be guessing, you don't know for sure, but maybe you do know for sure. What do you think the message is?
Well, I'm learning myself, okay, but I think that I'm trying to um not I'm it's not my job to wake up humanity by any
Yeah.
means, but it is I do find pleasure and satisfaction in helping people raise their own vibrations, and trying to bring some love into the world and some beauty and whatever else and some crazy stories, because I can relate to a lot of people. I've been through a lot of weird stuff in my life, good and bad, and I've experienced a lot of stuff, and I know that we're in a really weird time right now. Societies are just all over the place, and so yeah, just sharing my story, being the best version of me, so I can just talk to people, and we can try to figure some of these mysteries out. Yeah, I don't know. I think my mission, honestly, is just to be the best version of me right now. So
Beautiful. Beautiful.
yeah,
I'll try to help get your message out as
thank
much as I
you.
can, because I think you're on the right path. I can't think of anything you know, differ on you. You mentioned a second portal. Was there a second portal somewhere?
We've experienced, not, and I say we as in our team.
Yeah.
Um, Tim, okay, the other gentleman who walked into the cube portal, his name was Tim. He's the one who passed away. He had walked into another portal in another location that we had,
Wow.
same environment, all that stuff. It was almost exactly like the experience he had at the other location.
And
So yeah,
was the portal look the same, or
you couldn't see it. You
oh, you
couldn't
couldn't
see
see it?
it. Yeah, there was just something off. And when he walked through, I don't remember the entire story that he told us, but um, I believe Susan walked. One of our other teammates walked in it with him. So they both described similar environment and differences in the energy shifts and all that kind of stuff at this other portal, we call it. Now, we don't know where those things go. You know,
Yeah.
um, I have my suspicion that it could be man-made, and I mean I don't know for sure, but it's an option. We
Okay.
we just don't know what these things are.
Okay. So I've talked about this man-made. I told you that the this sort of indirect contact from the CIA wanted me to do TV show on this. So do you think that the government? What do you think the government has?
I have no idea. I have no clue. They're not going to tell us.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but you got to wonder where all these missing people are going, and how they're going missing without a trace.
Yeah.
And if we have a portal or the cube, whatever that thing was that our team experienced, and potentially we could have lost two of our teammates to it, but they had enough wherewithal to walk out, get out of there.
Did these two
I don't know.
guys have any paranormal experiences? Like you talked about the hitchhiker effect. Did they have any paranormal effects after the cube incident?
Oh yeah,
Well,
yes.
tell me
I
about
know.
that.
I know. Bob has. Bob was telling me. I was just at the meadow this past weekend.
Okay.
We go out there and we research that pretty regularly, actually.
Did he have one like related to the cube, like the next day or this something like that?
Um, I'm not sure if it was the next day. It's just kind of ongoing. We all attract a lot of weird paranormal activity.
There you go.
Um, yeah,
And
I
orbs?
don't recall.
Did they have orbs as well, or what was his Bob's encounter? The son of
Uh,
his encounters. What's he having? Is he ghosts or orbs or?
Well, he was telling me a story the other day about how the last time we were at the Meadow, which was about a month or two ago,
Yeah.
we went this past weekend, and then or this past week, and the last time we were there was about a month ago or so. He said that he had something had followed him home, he believes. And or maybe it wasn't actually, this was another location. We have several locations. He was at one of the locations, and he went to go get his hair cut. Okay, Bob's gonna
Okay.
love that I'm telling you the story.
That's good.
But he went to go get a haircut,
Good.
and I'm sure I have his permission. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Bob. Well, I'll
Yeah.
call him after this. But he went to go get his haircut at his beautician.
Yeah.
Okay, and his hairstylist, and when he as soon as he left, towels and plates started flying off the shelves,
Wow.
and the washing machine kept cutting on and off, and it wouldn't stop. They had to unplug it as soon as he left. So and his hairstylist said, he called him and was like, hey, you left something here. you know so yeah,
Wow.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing a book on, maybe you've had experience with this. I'm doing a book that's coming out. I have one on people flying the craft, which is coming out right away next week.
Ooh.
And then I've got one that's coming out about apports and manifestations, stuff that moves around and stuff that disappears and stuff that manifests.
Mhm.
And we call it, apports is the stuff that's moving around, and manifestations is stuff that appears, falls out of the ceiling. Have you had that kind of stuff for some of your people?
Okay, so I used to live in a very haunted house
Okay.
when I was
Okay.
younger, in downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was on the land that the Civil War had been fought on. Like a battle was fought right there in downtown Atlanta,
Okay.
and this was a really haunted, spooky house. I lived in the basement of it. Okay,
Okay.
and I had a lot of paranormal activity, including I'd come home at night and there'd be like a sheet of flies on the ceiling in my hallway. I mean, just like a blanket of flies.
Wow.
And they would be gone the next day. Okay. It was very dark. I didn't like that place at all. But I liked the location, but I didn't
Yeah.
like the place. And so one night I woke up and I thought my cat was moving a flower vase that I had beside my bed. And because I heard something moving on the wooden table beside me, and it kept moving. It was really slow, and then it kept moving. And so I jumped up in my bed and I said, Mayu, stop it. That was my
Mhm.
cat's name. And this vase, I actually have it's right behind the computer right now. I can't reach it though. This a very delicate glass vase flew off of my table, and it levitated and it sat in the air, just sat there right in
Wow.
front of my face. And then it crashed to the ground, and it didn't break.
Wow.
And my cat was actually across the room in his bed sleeping.
Wow.
So that happened. And the next morning, and I just kind of was like, I must be dreaming. So I went to sleep. Woke up the next morning. The vase was sitting upright on my floor, and the flower was laying on the ground that had been inside that vase.
And there was some
So
water or something beside the flower, right?
there was water in the vase, but the water was actually on the floor. But the
Wow.
vase was sitting upright. Yeah, it was really weird. So so I did see an object levitate.
Wow. I'll have to put that in my book. Like, so it's okay if I put it in the book.
I don't mind. I don't
There you
mind.
go. I'll stick it in the book because that's the kind of stuff I'll ask experiencers, and people like a lot of experiencers don't even realize that's related. But
Mhm.
there is this stuff that seems to follow people around, that this paranormal stuff. And again, it's like this idea: why do they want to move a vase? Why, it's like you're sitting there, and for the rest of your life, you're figuring that was weird, that vase, and you
Yeah.
realize that the world is a weird place, and there's stuff going on that you don't understand, and it humbles you a bit in terms of understanding that there are maybe entities that know more than us and trying to teach us, and we should just open up and accept what's going on and learn as much as we can, rather than having distinct views that we're going to stick to,
Yeah.
come hell or high water. So
Gotta have an open mind about
yeah.
everything. That's my big thing. I just if I can help open some minds and raise the consciousness of, as many people
Wow.
as possible, that's my mission, actually.
Wow. Okay, so hopefully you can come on tomorrow with the orb stories, and if you've got any of your other
Yeah.
teammates who've got orb stories or pictures or whatever, you can jump on there, and there'll be a bunch of people. It's sort of like where people I think they've even started a Facebook thing where they're all chatting and they're talking about
Oh,
their
I'm in it.
experience.
I'm in there. Nicole
Yeah,
put me in.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and you
so
did
that
too. I saw that. Yeah.
yeah, so and there's a lot of people like with huge numbers of you know orb sightings like you just can't believe. I mean, with the I don't know if you've had where you do you ever try to take orb photographs? You have these orb parties where they go out with the camera and stuff and try to.
Well, it humidity can be seen as orbs a lot of times and things like that. So no, not really. We do have thermal and FLIR videos of orbs in our base camps, and some of them have faces and things like that.
Oh wow.
Um, I actually have one of my research partners. He has it's a secondhand video that he got from someone uh, who's no longer with us, and so he will not release this publicly. But I saw the video again this weekend. I Every time I see this guy, I ask him to see his video.
Hmm.
But it's a video of someone's backyard, it's a CCTV, like a closed circuit TV camera, I guess.
Hmm.
And an orb shoots past the camera. It lands on the ground, and it turns into an alien.
Wow.
And there are multiple orbs, and they all land on the ground, turn into aliens, and they run around for a minute. Then they turn back into orbs, and they shoot past the camera again. It's
Oh my
just
goodness. And
it's
and and
disturbing,
and
but it's
and
fun.
disturbing. It's not disturbing. That's actual evidence of the
It
idea that
is.
Stephen Greer talked about that when his assistant died. That an orb appeared in the room and this a little alien was there.
Yeah.
And what's the idea about not releasing it? Is the guy is
Well, it belonged to someone who worked with MUFON, and she passed away a
oh
year or
okay.
two ago. And this was footage that she had given to him. I guess I'm not sure why, but he's not comfortable putting it out there. But
Oh,
he shows it to people
oh, work on
personally.
him, work on him. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty
yeah. We'll
important.
talk.
That's
I'll talk to
pretty,
him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Work on him to release that because I mean, that's the whole idea is what are the orbs? And people will show the photos of the grays inside the orbs, the
yeah,
pictures. There's a woman from Australia that's got 250,000 photos, and she's a former chemist, and she puts these huge blow-ups and shows what each orb, what kind of aliens in it. I mean, that's more if you got something where it actually appears, that's
mm,
critical stuff. So work on
it's
them to release
yeah.
it or get it out there because
Well, it's hard to sleep at night after you see that kind of stuff. And I'm very inoculated to the high strangeness. And my friend Barry Littleton as well, he's a paranormal researcher. He comes on my
okay.
show a lot. And he was there with me when we both saw it, that video for the first time. And he's a seasoned vet when it comes to ET activity. He's been abducted his entire life,
Yeah.
and has a relationship with some of the ETs. And
Okay.
it disturbed him too. And so we talk about that video all the time.
Okay, but okay, so let's go on this disturb. I mean, so are you a disclosure advocate or are you saying that we shouldn't
Yeah,
even
I
okay,
think
but
we
then
are.
but
But
then eventually people are gonna have to see this. I mean, people are
yeah,
gonna have
well,
to realize this is what's going on. I mean, if you're gonna do
they knew.
disclosure, I
Yeah.
mean, people are gonna have to suck it up and live with it because I mean, I was in from 1975, I'll tell you this, that I was in 1975 and people would ask me, like Steve Bassett asked me in front of one of his big conferences, when do you think disclosure is going to take place? I said 2042, because I never
Yeah.
believed that it would ever happen. 2017, I wrote an article called "The 64 Reasons They Decided Not to Tell You the Truth," and I
Yeah.
said, "There's no way they're ever going to tell you the truth, and no way." And then in 2017, suddenly this article appears, and I used to say, even Stephen Greer said, the stock market will melt down because people realize oil is not worth anything. People are going to jump off the building. And what happened when the big article came out and said the government actually is investigating UFOs? Nothing. Nobody jumped off
Nothing.
a
I
building. Nobody
know.
committed suicide. Nothing. So
Right.
I think people are going to be a lot
People are
less
ready.
afraid. But people have to realize they're not alone, and that
Mhm.
will sort of change the world.
Yeah.
Where because that's the deal is what are these orbs? At least tell the story. Where come on tomorrow, tell the story about this because the orb people they'll all maintain this, but nobody's got the evidence. They'll all say, "Oh, and these aliens," like a lot of them will say they're friendly. They giving me these messages or whatever, and but none of them have. Sounds like a video like that. Some have videos of aliens like on a rooftop beside them while this is going on and stuff like that. But I don't think people are going to panic as much as people. They may be shocked at first, but I mean, then what are people going to do? Because I always say to people, what are you going to do if disclosure happens today? What are you going to do tomorrow? You're going to go to work just like everybody else. You got to make a job.
Right.
Yeah, who cares? You go to work.
Right.
It's like that was pretty wild, but I got to go to work and I got to take my kid to soccer practice, or I got
Yeah.
to take care of my baby. I think the world will just go on. People will realize, wow, that's a head changer, but they'll be, they'll just go on with their life. That's what people do. I mean, it doesn't matter how shocking the political news is, people just go on with their life. Okay,
They do.
yeah,
It is. And people get upset too. Like, why is the government not telling us that these things are real? Well, I think that we are the disclosure.
yeah, exactly.
The
Oh,
experiencer, people like myself and my teams and my friends and anyone who's had experiences, we are the disclosure. And so we are out here telling our stories and
there you go.
bringing
So
our
that's your job.
evidence
That's your
and
job
all
to get
that.
that. That's your job to put it on your show and put out
It
the
is.
film, and I'll advertise it, and I'll say
Thank you.
disclosure is about to happen. Okay, watch this film and be ready to be afraid for a couple of hours. And that's the thing. As the expression is, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
We are.
So thank you
Absolutely.
very much for your time. Give me your shows again, and give me anything, your website, or where people can contact you. And hopefully we can do this again, because you're a wealth of information. And hopefully you show up tomorrow, bring whoever you want for the orb panel, because we've had a few orb panels and you'll see some pretty amazing orb videos. Some people they spend their life trying to get these videos.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so give me
Yeah,
your
I
shows
can't wait.
again. And
Yeah.
how long you been doing Dave's show, the Spaced Out Radio?
Yeah, I started Spaced Out Radio in May, so it's not been very long, but I've done a lot of shows. I have 2 shows a week, so every Saturday and Sunday night, I'm on Spaced Out Radio. You can find, all of my shows and everything I do on my website, thecryptidhuntress.com. I have a YouTube channel as well, The Cryptid Huntress, okay, on YouTube. I do a show on Wednesdays, a daytime show called A Glitch in the Matrix on my YouTube channel. I have a show on Friday nights on my YouTube channel and with Texas Front Porch. And it's called Remote Viewing Investigations, where I look into a lot of really interesting paranormal things, mostly attacks like dogman attacks or Bigfoot attacks. Or I did the Beast of Ray Road a couple weeks ago, and this Friday, tomorrow, I'm actually doing, or this Friday, I'm doing a vampire out of Wisconsin. I'm looking into that, or I looked into it already.
Wow.
And so I do a lot of that kind of stuff. And then Saturday and Sunday, I'm at Spaced Out Radio. Yeah, so I have a lot of fun doing this stuff. I never run out of topics.
Wow. Well,
So,
it's been an honor to talk with you. I'll just give you a little bit of advice here before we leave here. Someone posted on my Facebook. You may have seen it, because you said you're in there with these animals and stuff. And so here's a little tip for you guys about wolves. Don't teach a wolf to meditate, because when you teach a wolf to meditate, he becomes a werewolf.
he's aware.
A
He's
werewolf.
aware. Well, we're trying to raise the vibe of the planet there.
There you go.
We need to make them aware too, right? Full
Okay, thank
disclosure.
you, Jessica. It was an honor to meet you and to talk to you, and hopefully we can maybe do some stuff together. And because you're in the same stuff as I am, and hopefully you show up tomorrow, and we'll introduce you, and you can tell these stories again, and the people will just love it. Thank
Oh,
you.
I would love that. Thank you, Grant. It was so nice to meet you. It's been
Beautiful.
fun.
I'll just